going on, YouTube? Peace to everyone. It's been a while. Glad to be back. Just been busy. Just that's really about it. And also, there's been a bigger thing, just kind of a PSA, public service announcement. I'm just kind of fine tuning and want to kind of change some things that I want to do with my YouTube channel and myself personally and all that. And so you're gonna look for more diverse content, if you will. Want to expand myself. Not only I'm still going to stick to the bread and butter of gyms, working out, training. Those are my bread. That's not going anywhere. I'm just going to add to that. And I've dabbled in a couple of my videos and stuff, kind of expanding on sports, and I just want to continue that process of entertainment and things that really just kind of come up and get sparks in my brain, and if that helps other people and maybe they're thinking the same stuff, just to have those conversations. I think is important to have those conversations. So look for some of that coming up for the next, especially going into the next year. I think that's kind of where I've been leaning in terms of my New Year's resolution, is to really get into other avenues and stuff like that, and really expand and show my diversity in terms of other places that I can go in terms of talking and talking about in terms of other subjects and stuff like that. But understand, we still going to be my essence is working out. My essence is gym, training, motivation, all that good stuff. That is my bread and butter. So that ain't going to change. It's just going to be a little bit more added nuances and stuff that, just want to see how that goes, and have some fun with it. It's all entertainment. It's all a good time. So with that being said, I want to get into this. Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, leaving Ole Miss to go to LSU. Now, on a broader scale, I want to kind of preface how when I get into that, I want to preface that before I get into that. We're beyond what college is today. College is a profession. It is a business. And and just like coaches, players, like the institutions, are all making money. When there's money involved, there's other things that's being moved. You can hate it, you can love it, you can be indifferent. I'm saying that it ain't going anywhere. It's only going to get. I believe there needs to be some parameters on all levels: the athlete level, the school level, and the coaches level. And if you want to add the TV media as that bigger umbrella, because that's where all this has started or trickled down from, I think that there needs to be some kind of parameter on that as well. But with that being said, that's probably another topic for another day, for another discussion. But with that, I wanted to kind of broaden that, because I know the spark of the debate is, well, kids are doing this, well, the media is doing that, and da-da-da-da. So what? That still does not make what Lane Kiffin did or has done any more or less good or bad. That's why we're reacting to this, and that's why we're talking. Everybody has an opinion. I'm gonna have mine as well. And where I feel that ultimately, it's very uncomfortable, and I think that's the sentiment from a lot of people nationally in terms of how this has been handled by himself, by both schools. And I think what gets lost in the translation is the student athlete. And yes, that student actually exists still in college, student athletes. I know we forget about that, the fact that these young men and young women, these collegiate athletes, are still going to school to better themselves, because not everybody's going to go pro. That being said, that is where I believe the athletes has gotten lost in this. These are human beings. These are young men, and football is because I played it at a high level for a lot of years, I'm a little biased on it, but it's not to diminish or any other sport, because they're all extremely hard and difficult. It's all mental. Very little bit in terms of doing what physical that really gets you. It's the mental aspect of every respective sport. Playing football, it's so gladiator like. you the person that's motivating you is standing on the sideline. The person that's getting you to run through somebody is standing on the sideline. They're not back in the 1800s or 1600s or 1,000, 15,000 years ago where generals were running with you as the soldier through that field and they battling right next to you. As, the analogy of war in football and all of that, the generals have slowly moved out and they're the ones who are calling the shots for the soldiers to come in and fight. With that being said, and using that analogy in terms of war and soldiers and fighting and battling and all of that, the coach is as in Lane Kiffin's part, has motivated these young men at Ole Miss to where they're a top 5, top 10 team in the nation and been battling all year and doing a great job, might I add. And now they're at this point where they battled and worked their tails off to get to the point where they're at. And then their general leaves them. I can't put into words of how that affects a student or an athlete in that capacity when, they just up and out and leave to better pastures. There's so many trickle downs effects that happens to the athlete's psyche that I'm interested to find out how they're going to galvanize themselves and keep themselves together as they go embark on the college football playoff, because they're going to be in. And the projections of the teams they're going to be playing against, they're going to be in for a difficult run to go through that the tournament, the college football playoff tournament. It's amazing to see how easy it is for a college coach to just hightail it out when I guess basically when they see fit. Now, I understand that I put a little bit more context to this. College do have recruiting parameters. So, we, even though they added the college football into it, the NCAA still have college recruiting parameters in terms of when you can get on the recruiting trail and signing and early signings and then summer signings and all of that. So the premise of starting now for a coach to get into with another coach or into with another school is because you want to meet those college signings and early signings and recruiting trail to get a leg up on that going into, now it's December and it's bowl week, bowl season, and then going into January where, it's just going to be a small portion of schools that's going to be playing and vying for the national title. The rest are, like I said, in this month, chasing for bowls. By January, it's going to be some of the more elite schools in the college football, and then that's going to take over. Once that's done, then you're back on the trail. Well, if you go into a school that's already out, then it's in that position where you got to hit the ground running and get ready to recruit, to compete against the Alabamas, the Oklahomas, the Texas. They're still in the SEC, and to try to get a leg up on those recruits that you was already moving on when you was at Ole Miss. Now you in LSU, and how can you flip those that was going to go to Ole Miss? Now you try to get them and convince them to go to LSU. So there's some times in terms of why that side where they're saying this is why they're leaving, this is why you want to leave early, and why he had to leave with the time he did is primarily some of those are the reasons. And I'm sure there's various other reasons, but that's some of the ones that they highly illuminate in that. Overall, that is true, but it with all due respect, is still a load of crap. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because you're not at a small town program. You at LSU. This is one of the higher premier football schools, and really bigger D1 top level schools anyway. And it's nationally recognized, of course. So you can spare another month before, if you're done with the season, whenever your Ole Miss season is over with in terms of the college football playoffs, that you can say, all right, this is it, and now I'm gonna head to LSU and do my thing. It's not going to hurt LSU recruiting at all. And some people go, no, I beg to differ. Commits, decommit all the way up until almost July, August, right before they're heading out to college camp and college campuses and getting ready to practice, and they decommit and go to different schools. That has happened, and it will happen. And you still have the transfer portal for these athletes to move when they can move, and they already made parameters on that. So to act like that was in such a dire need for LSU to make sure that they're stay ahead is a load of crap. The worst thing about this is these kids, these young men, I'm not gonna call them kids, they're young men, losing that general and losing that sense of direction. I haven't delved into each and every player of Ole Miss, so I'm saying that before I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but with respect to their backgrounds and respect to their lives, but I still feel that it has to be said. Some of those young men may not have father figures in their lives. They may not have their dads in their lives. They may not have their uncles or older male leadership in their lives and leaned on Lane Kiffin and their coaching staff. Now, I know some of their coaching staff is still going to stay there, I heard, which is a good thing. But nonetheless, these kids are, like I've said earlier, these kids are willing to run through brick walls through the coach. And now that coach that they trust their football lives, their sports lives, decided on basically saying, look, I went somewhere better than you. And even though that may not be what they go, oh, I don't think that's what it really meant, or you may be taking this far, when you leave in the middle of building that kind of program to where it's at right now in Ole Miss, doing things that school hasn't done in forever, and some statistics that they have accomplished never done, and you go through all that process, you get these kids in this level where they're in national contention for a national title, and you still feel that that's not enough, and you leave when you're on the cuff of potential national title. Now, we all can make an argument in terms of football terms if they actually have a shot or not. I give them a shot just as well as Indiana, Ohio State, and any other school that's in that top 12 that's in that bracket this year. They have just as well a strong shot as anybody else. Anything can happen. So to even have that and put them in that position and still leave with them in that position is a different thing that I haven't seen. And I've seen some coaches leave, but that's different, and going at that level and going this soon. I will say this, and I'll end it on saying this. My grandmother, years ago before she passed away, I remember her talking with my auntie, her daughter, and they were talking about relationships and stuff like that. And because I remember this, why I remember it, because my auntie would furthermore say it off of my grandmother saying it to her, and she found herself saying it as we got older, as I got older, as we got older. But my grandma said, the way you come into a relationship is the same way you're going to come out of a relationship. So you never want to come into a relationship negative, because that's more likely the way you're going to come out of a relationship. And that stuck to me because, like I said, my auntie would always say it after her, but I remember my grandma saying that because she would always say that just out here talking about it in passing, and then my auntie and them would talk about it. But as I got older, it made more and more sense. That's why, I've always learned to, you don't burn your bridges. When you leave a situation, you don't burn your bridges. You never know, you may have to go back. And that could just mean in general, not to everything is applicable to that statement. But it's important that the person that you bring inside of your world, your sphere, in terms of, bringing them and making a relationship, a friendship, a business partnership, any of those ships, right? Any of those connections, how they left a situation, their previous situation, you might want to pay attention to that. And with Lane Kiffin, he has a history of leaving for what he believes is greener pastures. And he had a history with Ole Miss that other options he was trying for. And I don't know how they were receptive to that or not, or if they were cool with it and didn't mind it, or they were upset, but just, he's still there. He's still doing, the team is still playing good and this and that. So it's this kind of nip and take, give and take, nip and tuck type of deal. But I would say this to LSU and LSU fans. You seen how he left them. I will leave it at that. And I'll leave it again by saying that, how they left their situation and they came to you, how they came to you is usually how they're gonna come out. It's usually how they're gonna live out. And you have to ask yourself, are you the creme de la creme of college football? Is LSU the top spot, the number one spot in all of college football? And if he does good and he does very well, who's to say that he won't do the same thing that he did to Ole Miss to you? So with that being said, just something to think about. Who are you? What is your mission? I appreciate you guys. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. On to more content. With that being said, peace.